good afternoon. Welcome to MCM Reviews right here on GTV. I'm your host, Mashadi Mudis, and of course today we are having a Woman Empower edition, and my guest for today is Miss Bachelorette Mahoshi Maponyane. Hi girl.
Hey guys.
How are you doing?
I'm good, and how are you?
Thank you for joining me for today.
Yes.
Oh.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So before I get to introduce you to our viewers right there.
Yes.
You and I met, I think it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
When you were, was it 3 years ago?
No,
2019.
It was last year.
It was last year.
Yeah.
When you were on your road to becoming Miss Bachelorette.
I was a finalist back then.
You were a finalist. Okay, let's talk about that. The space that you were in right there. You were campaigning to become Miss Bachelorette. So before we get into that, let's explain, Jorge, how did you get into a pageant?
I've always actually been into pageants. I started pageants when I was 6. I actually hated pageants. And along the way, I think it was about when I was 16, then I met modeling, which is ramp. So those two are very
I wanted to know, because we kept saying modeling instead of pageants. So there's a difference between modeling.
There's a huge difference between modeling and pageant.
Okay.
With pageantry, it's all about yourself, it's all about the person, it's all about the individual and presentation. And as a model, you're a mannequin. You're given clothes and you advertise.
Wow.
So that is the difference between modeling and pageantry.
All right. So you started when you were 6 years old?
I started with pageantry when I was 6 years old. I stopped when I was about 13. I didn't like it much because we had to answer questions.
What is it about answering questions though?
No, it seemed fake for me at that time. There was a level of fakeness that I didn't want to portray. And until I understood what it is I wanted to say and how it is I wanted to express my opinion, that's when I went into pageantry. Because I understood there was a time I needed to speak to people, and pageantry would do that for me. So modeling taught me how to sell without speaking, which is quite good because I can do that anytime I walk in a room. So they both worked as an advantage for me.
Oh, beautiful. Now, it is the 1st of August, and of course we are celebrating Women's Month. And the first time that I met you, I was very shook to meet such an amazing woman. You're very assertive. You're very assertive. You're very confident. You speak out. You don't shy away from speaking out what you believe in. Have you always been that way as a child? On what groomed you to become such a person that you are?
I actually found out that I was actually like that as a child.
All right.
But I don't remember those days. My father remembers those days. Okay. But eventually, I think I grew into it. Like when I went to pageantry, I realized I was saying a lot in my head, and it had to come out in some sort of way. So I wanted a platform that would train me to speak, and I did that. But along the way, I went through a self-love journey. I call it a self-realization journey. And that's when I think I actually learned more, even better to articulate myself in the way that I do now.
All right, cool then. So today's topic on the show, it is the modern day woman. And I feel it's so fitting for a woman of your caliber because you are Miss Bachelorette. I still need to find it properly. So before we get into our topic of the day, please explain to us, Jorge, what was the process about? What is the pageant about?
So Miss Bachelorette South Africa, it's the first of its kind in the country. And eventually it's something that's looked at to go worldwide. So eventually we're looking at having Miss Bachelorette World. So Miss Bachelorette is a pageant for unmarried women between the ages of 25 and 50. This could be somebody who's a divorcee, this could be somebody who's a single mother, and could be somebody who is a career-driven woman. So a lot of people mistake it for somebody who's looking for a man, because it's a show called The Bachelor.
Oh, yes.
So when they hear Bachelorette, they're assuming it's a show that I go there and I'm like, I'm looking for a man. So no, I'm not. It's for unmarried. So unmarried means that you do have a partner, but you are not married yet. So that is a pageant that accommodates those women, because there is a pageant that accommodates a young girl that we know about in the country, and there's a pageant that celebrates married women. But there's never a pageant that has celebrated and really looked at the power of a single mother, a divorcee or a widow. because there's certain power and a certain presence of a woman that appears in that environment.
True.
So Ms. Bachelorette has really completed the diversity of what a woman can be and who a woman is.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really honored to be representing that woman in the country or even in the world, because it's the first of its kind.
Yeah, I love that because I relate to it very much, because I've been in situations where, okay, most of my friends, some they are married, some they're in a relationship, but whenever you are single, if I may put it that way, you are seen as the odd one. You are, yeah, you are there, but we have such pageants that celebrate you as a woman who is, you know, not married, who's a divorcee also. So I'm loving that also. So let's get into our topic.
Yes.
A modern day woman.
Yeah.
It's very broad, if I may put it that way.
It is.
But what do you understand about a modern day woman?
I think for me it's an evolving woman, really. The times we are at requires a certain type of woman, or accommodates a certain type of woman. And I think this time it is the time that has accommodated a woman who has a right to find a job and work for herself, because our month and the woman and the 9th of August is what it stood for. It's that household didn't have men anymore because of what we had to fight, and women were in the household. So it was about us fighting for the freedom to be able to take care of our families and to be able to do what we need to do for our families in the cases where house didn't have a male figure who looked after them. So as a woman, I call it an evolving woman. I'd rather prefer it as an evolving woman. And women have always just evolved. But I think now we have the freedom to even speak up. I think the feminine spirit is waking up to who it truly is. And that's what I like about being a woman. Call it modern day, I call it evolve. I just call it woman, period. Yeah.
So I love that. I call it I'm calling it a modern woman, because you look at the traditional way of how a woman should be. You know, we grew up in our parents, not me. Hey, so the same way our parents were, you know, sort of. We had these social norms, we had these rules. A woman is supposed to be this way, a woman is supposed to bear children, a woman is supposed to be in the house looking and growing up. So I call it a modern woman, because now we are more than ever advised to do whatever that you want, you know, as a woman. You're more advised to speak out, you know. So what's your take between that transition of the traditional woman and the woman that we are becoming right now?
I think the traditional woman spoke to the time that happened. When men had to go to war, when men had to go and hunt, when men had to go out and fend for the family, because they're physically strong and they're physically able to fight whatever is out there. Women were nurturers, so they stayed home, and they were healers. You know, they were teachers, so it wasn't about...
Which was nothing wrong with that.
So it wasn't actually even nothing about bearing children. You know, yes, they bore children to create a legacy, you know, to grow a legacy for the family. But somebody had to be there who was able to do that role. And because a woman is a nurturer, it did that. But as the time evolved, or as the times got modern, times changed, opportunities opened, and opportunities opened for women. Some of us, yes, are stuck in that time, not even understanding the dynamics of what went on around that time. So I think I'm grateful that women are starting. It's not something that people never spoke about. It's just maybe one in a few, like you say, you amongst your girlfriends, you find that you're a single one, most are married, you shun upon and things like that. But now it's okay, and speaking up is okay. And a platform such as Ms. Bachelorette, it's saying you have a choice. You know, if you want to, people end up in marriages and stay in them because of the stigma of not being married. Sometimes those environments are abusive. Sometimes people are even going there for the reasons of fitting in society. We're not saying marriage is wrong. We're just saying that it's part of life. With or without it, you are still a complete woman. And that's what actually my hashtag stands for. And that's what I promote, for a woman to be an individual and choose what you want to do. But when somebody, and it's okay when somebody doesn't like approve of your decisions. It's your life. It's your decisions, and those are the decisions that you have to live by throughout your life. So when you put yourself in a box just to fit in into what? fitting into a standard that a woman somewhere or society us as has decided for you.
Yeah.
Somebody thought this works for me. We thought, oh, it's cool. She looked great while she's doing it, so let's just move on and do the same thing.
Yeah.
So the hashtag "The Goal Is Me," which is a campaign I started, really stand for that. Marriage is part of life, but neither a yardstick that defines your womanhood.
Love that.
With or without it, you're a complete woman. So this is all to just start living a lifestyle of choice. To say there's goals out there in life. Marriage is not the ultimate one. It's one of them. And if you go through that journey, it's absolutely amazing. And if you don't, it still would be absolutely amazing. So it's really just about changing the mindset of women and what it is that you want out of life, and stop following the norms of what everybody is doing. And I think that's what's happening now when you're calling it traditional and modern.
Do you think that we also get pressure from like our family members because we feel for it? No, Mashadi, you are a certain age right now. You need to be married by now. And that's time I'm not even thinking about marriage. I'm thinking about, okay, I need to get money.
You need to do stuff.
I need to get money. Hey.
And those things are not celebrated. So when a young girl grows up, as parents or as karai, you know, you say things like, oh, I can't wait till you get married. Oh, I can't wait till you look like that. Oh, I can't wait till it's your day.
Yeah.
You know, so we belittle other experiences, or belittle other goals that this child might have.
Yeah.
The child might see herself as moving outside of the country, for example, and exploring or creating new things. And at that point, we are blocking even their creativity. Now you're channeling someone into something they cannot be, or even if they don't want to be, or maybe are not ready for it yet, which could be dangerous. And I think those conversations start at home. A lot of people are not going to like it, but that's the truth. Most of us are living lives to impress people. Most of us, I mean, I stand there and I'm like, I'm Miss Bachelorette, and the first thing people would say is, oh, so you're looking for a man. And that alone, I have a problem with that.
It's an issue.
It's an issue, because when you say you're hosting a bachelorette party, who are you hosting it for? It's an unmarried woman, you know. So you're celebrating an unmarried woman, and you're celebrating the stage in her life. But it's, for me, it's really that. And yeah, I think it's just time. It's being time.
Sure. No, I get you. Now, okay. I started a foundation or movement, I'd rather call it a movement called Women in Power, where I mostly host events and talks around womanhood, right? Yeah. And you get to invite women that get to speak about their experiences and all. And the first 3 events, I got to have, men, like, but no, feminism, what's happening? Why aren't we invited to such events? But before we get in depth into that, let's talk about feminism. What's your take on feminism? And I think the people that have created their own definition around feminism. So, do you believe as a woman, no, I'm not feminist as a woman? Because you do find such women be like, nah, I don't want to be associated with that because now it has a bad name or attached to it. So, what's your take on that?
I think that's exactly what you're saying. There's a bad name attached to it, or we've sort of changed it. Feminism for me was about a woman having the same, looked at the same, given the same opportunities, but, because like you're saying traditionally, maybe they say a woman is not allowed to speak back, or you're supposed to dim your light so that your man can shine. Your dreams just must be a little bit smaller, but it's okay, let woman be. What is the difference? At the end of the day, we are human, and that's what feminism is for me. But it has turned out to be men are trash, I hate men movement, which is, I think if we get the right understanding of it, we can move from the right place. I think that's what I have to say about feminism.
All right. So I've had these conversations with a group of my girls. Be like, okay, but we need to involve men more into these events. Okay, I've seen that women are doing great things. They're hosting events, women in power, motivation. But we need to involve men because I feel that, okay, and one thing that I've always said is that I don't belittle anyone. I don't belittle men. I love men. Like men are the great. Like she said, men are the great. And we have certain issues with men, and I feel that we need to address them with them, not with us. And yes, we can address them woman to woman, but do you feel that the route that we're taking is sort of like wrong in a way that we are ourselves and addressing those issues, but we don't involve
your part, vice versa, and how it affects each other, it's better. Unlike us sitting there or men sitting there and assuming, oh, women are like this, or men are like this. No, when they do this, they mean 1, 2, 3, 4. But when a man is there and actually speaks and explains it, then, that whole fluff, and we don't keep going back to a conference or an event for the same issue, then we know exactly where we're talking from. We get an understanding of where the next person is coming from. And in that way, I think healing starts. If we are there for the reasons of listening and the reasons of saying we want to understand each other and not who is right and who is better.
All right. So with these sort of events or women finding their voices, I feel that, okay, we've seen the rate of gender-based violence and the number of femicides is going up. It's just hitting the roof. So do you feel that women finding their voices, women becoming more independent, women going out there, speaking against, the social norms that were created back then, sort of gives men that power to say, you know what, you need to sit down, you need to lower your voice. So do you think that attracts that force, a man should come into you and then violate you and need to silence you forcefully? So do you feel so?
Okay, this one is a bit tricky because man issues, I believe, should be also discussed by men.
Okay.
Men raise young boys to be men. And there has been a shortage of that in our families and in our environments of good role models as men. We're not looking for a perfect man.
Sure.
We're looking for a man who tries and every day strives better to be better. Learns from his mistakes and do things different. That's how as women we do it. As a mother, you don't know how it is to raise a child when the child is born. But you learn as you go, you make the mistakes and you correct it. And because as women, we have women who have become women and are strong, and we've always been trained to be this homemakers. But as men, there hasn't been a lot of men trained to be protectors of family, trained to be providers of family. And if the few men who are out there, or even the men who are, for lack of a better word, broken, if we say that, or who don't know where to start, come together and find that information together. That for me, I feel that's a place to start. I'm passionate about young boys, but those differences, as we are going on and making the mistakes, the men need to come together and do the same thing. We're not looking for a perfect man. We're looking for men with the same vision to say, I want to be a great father. I want to be a great leader. I want to be I want to learn what it is to provide. If there's one man here who has learned from his dad to provide, if there's one man here who has learned from his dad to protect, they can all share information to be those men. Because that's what we're doing as women. We get them, we talk, like, you know what, friend, I've got this issue with 1, 2, 3, 4. This friend talks, this friend talks, this friend talks. And I think that's where we can start. But a woman cannot raise a man. A woman is a nurturer. A woman is a nurturer. Do you understand? And a man protects. How am I going to teach the child to protect? I know how to defend my child, but I don't know how to protect a family.
Okay,
I understand. So it's needed like that. And I know there's a lot of men who talk out this to say women have, there's just too many women movements or things like that. There's nothing about men, but we need them to step up. It's uncomfortable to do it. We're not doing it because we are comfortable with it. It's uncomfortable to do it, but it needs to start somewhere.
All right, so we as a young kid out there, a young girl out there, we were talking about what you do and some of the things that you're doing right now. You're doing it for the next generation also.
Definitely.
So looking at a 5-year-old, what would you instill, or a child, your child, let's just put it that way, what would you instill in that particular child, a young girl out there, these are some of the characteristics that you need to take, or these are some of the fighting forces that you need to instill in yourself to survive in this world as a modern woman?
A child always learns by watching.
Okay.
So the hashtag for me is exactly that, because it's about mothers living the life they want their children to be. So children don't learn by you saying do this and do that. And I do that with my nieces. And I think that they're my greatest motivation. Every time I'm scared to do something, I stand up and I do it, because I don't want them to be fearful of anything. I want them to stand there and say, oh, because they call me Mama Hoshi.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, Mama Hoshi, so you do it like this? I'm like, yes. So they just look at me and they do it. Even with the modeling, they're like, okay, no. They know now who to go to for beauty tips or talking tips or modeling tips or any other tip, or even to talk to, because you create that environment to do that. As a woman, the challenge is on us. As men, the challenge is on you, the grown men, to act right so that the child can see how it's done. So that's what it is when we do it, and so that the child can learn from you.
So, okay, I get you, I hear you. Yeah. Do you think that we can still, there's a better place for us as women?
Of course there is.
So
we fighters.
Yeah.
We survivors. Like I'm saying, there's widows, there's with Miss Bachelorette, there's widows, there's single women or unmarried women who chose not to get married. And to go through that and to go through those challenges, it takes a certain amount of resilience. And that's what we are as women. There's nothing that puts us down. If we want something, we'll break through that barrier. Yeah. How many times have you had broken hearts and you stand up and you do it?
Countless times.
Exactly. And how many times mothers lose children every day, but they stand up, they still try again in their children. There's a certain power about women that I admire so much. Yeah. There's a certain power about women that every day I wake up and I explore. Yeah. I haven't reached it, but I'm absolutely, if I had to come back again, I'll be a woman. I'll definitely be.
I love that. I love that. Do you agree with the fact that we are being called rocks, we are being called imboroto, we are strong? Okay, yes, we are strong, if I may put it that way, but our strongness is taken into like a negative way in a way, because if we can take anything. Yeah. Sort of like being in a relationship also. We feel that no, when a woman you can take whatever that I give it to you, but as you know the other part, you're like, yeah, but me, I'm fragile. So do you agree with that, with the term of being a strong woman, especially strong black woman, if I may put it that way?
I had to re-identify what strength is, and somebody made an example, and they said, strength is somebody walking into a room and admitting to their weakness. Nobody does that. Sure. If a man comes in and approaches, and he made an example with the guy, he's like, he doesn't come there and say, I'm insecure. Sometimes I'll follow you around. Nah. Sometimes I check your phone, and I get paranoid a little time. So will you date me? And that takes strength. For me, that's what strength is. As someone, if something is not working for you, it's difficult, like I'm saying. You've got a group of friends who are all married, and you get this guy who comes in, he is fine and proper in somebody else's eyes, but for you and for where you want to be, you feel, no, this really doesn't work for me. And it takes an amount of courage and strength to say, you know what, in the midst of everybody wanting this for me, in the midst of going to be criticized for not being married, or being criticized for whatever it might be, for not fitting in, I stand and I say, I do not want this. This is not suitable for me. Criticize me if you want. So for me, that's strength. So strength for me has evolved, and I have found a new meaning for it.
True. I like that. I like that so much. Sure. So waiting for Mahoshi right now. I believe that we've been waiting for that single to drop. She's a singer, by the way. Are you going to drop a note for us? Because
I'm not going to drop a note for you.
Why? Is it like a vocal?
Yeah, Corona has like got us badly, so I don't want to mess up the song. But with the single, with everything that's been going on, because I was supposed to do it before the Miss Bachelorette, actually.
Yes.
So it was right before I joined in the journey of Miss Bachelorette. And I thought, you know what, after everything is settled, after April, because I was supposed to do the crowning in April, and I'm queening for just a little bit longer.
Listen,
until that
2020, happens. So we can still call you Horepana.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
So some of the plans that you have, what are you currently working on?
So I just last year qualified as a life coach and an NLP practitioner. So that's a new business of mine that I am doing, and obviously my fashion passion, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do a lot of virtual modeling coaching, or correction, I'd like to call it, because you need physical people to model. But I found a way to make it creative online, and I want to start that soon, maybe September.
Is it difficult to get into a pageant and do? Because I know there's like a process that you guys you go for practicing, you go for training, you go for.
We have to raise funds in the process. So we're working with a home called Direst Restoration Home. It's a safe haven for abuse victims, rape survivors, and a rehabilitation center for commercial sex workers. So we're raising funds through that process before you even. So those were one of our judging things. So all the finalists raised about 100K. towards this home, to build it. And the second round of finalists who are here now, the 2020 finalists are still carrying on with that and raising funds for the home. So it's not just about there and smiling. We raise funds, we find sponsorships to actually make people's dreams come true and this journey possible.
Oh, no, that's beautiful. Makoshi, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate
you so much. I could go on and on and on and on and on until you take my job. Are you going to take my job someday? Because
No,
you've been promising to
get
into penetrate. And
but I just want to read the news.
You just want to read the news. I know.
Yeah, that's all I want to do.
You've been wanting to read the
I
news.
just want to read the news. I've always wanted to read the news.
You coming and reading the news for me. I shall do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. And your viewers, thank you so much.
Yes, and of course that is another segment of MCM Reviews right here on GTV. I'm your host, Mashadi and I'm out.